Retellings can go so wrong. Listen, I love retellings. I really enjoy reading them. But recently I read Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel and that book enraged me so much I was forced to look into problems with modern day retellings, and hence today we have this video. So fasten your seatbelts because today we are going to be looking at 4 reasons as to what makes modern retellings less like a poetry by Omar but more by like a bad HR seminar. Let's be real, retelling stories isn't really the main problem. Like, we have been remixing myths and retelling them since probably when the Greeks were painting on vases. Take for example, I, Claudius. Now that is a book which was written decades ago, and I would say it's kind of like the modern day Gossip Girl of Rome with a little bit more poison. And then look at our very own fan favorite Song of Achilles. Like, it didn't go and fix the Trojan War itself. It kind of gave a completely new perspective, ripped our hearts apart, stomped on them, and then we go and thank Madeline Miller for the privilege. So what's the difference? These stories kept the core the same. They kind of respected the fact that the ancient world was like this dangerous place. And now what happens? Like, I think in some retellings we have stopped writing tragedies and started writing apologies. Instead of accepting the fact that these ancient myths or stories can be like brutal and messy and dark, like these few of the modern day authors, they're trying to change them into something nice, and this is where the rot sets in. And I get it why publishers are doing this, because it's a huge market, it's a gold rush. In 2024 alone, the modern day fantasy and mythology market kind of went up around 40%. Madeline Miller's Song of Achilles sold around 2 million copies. Even Circe passed like a 1 million mark. Publishers saw those numbers and decided, yeah, we don't need like real stories, we need more togas and maybe Girlbossifications of ancient queens. That's how we ended up with a market which has more quantity over quality, and few authors kind of believing the fact that if you take a modern day soap opera and put a corset on it, you can sell it as a Greek tragedy. Let's start with the first problem, which is the principle of Manichaean morality or the lazy switch. The desire to make everyone nice leads us to the first deadly sin, the girl boss stepmother syndrome. Remember the Amazon Prime Cinderella back from 2021? The one that felt like a corporate fever dream? That movie was terrified of having a truly wicked stepmother. So instead what they did was that character was not like cruel, but she was like the sad piano teacher who was herself a victim of patriarchy. She didn't lock Cinderella in the basement out of spite, but she did it because she had like generational trauma. By removing this cruelty, the movie destroyed the triumph. The movie is not about a wicked stepmother, but like about some concerned mother with a bad delivery. Then Cinderella isn't really someone who is coming out of abuse, who is fighting for that. She's just like a teenager who is arguing with her parents for a curfew. In literary terms, we call this Manichaean morality or lazy inversion. It's the mistaken belief that nuance just means swapping the jerseys. So the bad guy becomes the good guy becomes the bad guy. But in essence, morality is still just black and white. We see this clearly in books like Kaikeyi. Like, the author fell into this pendulum trap. Because history treated Kaikeyi unfairly, the author completely swung the pendulum and made Kaikeyi from a demon to a saint, completely skipping the human aspect of it. And suddenly you have Ravana, the demon king, the main villain of the story, as this really nice, misunderstood guy, and Ram, who is literally a god, he's like a cartoonish villain. This doesn't add any depth, it just feels childish. A perfect example of this done right and operating into the grey area is Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. Like, in episode 1 or 2, he pushes a child out of the window. Like, he's a villain, period, for doing this. But over the course of the seasons, you kind of understand his character and sometimes even root for him. But But the book does not, or the series does not gaslight you into believing that this guy is a saint, like he didn't push the kid out of the window. Now that is great, like simply writing a bad boy as this, sad boy with a tragic backstory isn't like deep writing. It's probably just fan fiction with a barcode. And this leads us to our second problem, which is the principle of presentism. Nothing kills a mythical vibe more than a character from 1000 BC talking such that they just scrolled TikTok. This is the sin of presentism. It's introducing this modern therapy language into this ancient body. Now imagine like Achilles is standing over the gates of Troy, all the gods are watching, everything, there's a huge tension-filled environment going on, and instead of like raging and screaming in rage, he just speaks something like, Agamemnon just kind of gaslighted me into believing this, and he needs to respect my personal boundaries. Doesn't sit right? Bronze Age warriors don't sound like HR representatives, yet we see this continuously. In Netflix Persuasion, the heroine says something like, oh, now we are worse than exes, we are friends. It was hated because it felt something like spotting a Starbucks cup on the Game of Thrones set. Similarly, in Kaikeyi, when she's kind of worrying about offending people or, using modern day political slurs, this environment kind of slips, it breaks. You feel like you're no longer reading about this badass ancient queen, you're more reading about like probably an influencer in a costume. Great retelling, at least for me, was Clytemnestra. In that story, it kind of understands that the setting is in the past. Like Clytemnestra is such a strong feminist icon, but she doesn't talk like one. Like she doesn't want this modern day equality. She wants power in the true sense of the Greek environment or what was going on at that time in that kingdom. When authors try to sanitize the past with modern morals, like they don't make the characters relatable, they just make them fake. And this leads to our third problem, a very big problem, especially with retellings related to showing ancient queens as feminists, which is the strawman feminist trope or the sitcom husband effect. You know those lazy infomercials when the guy kind of tries to open a carton of milk, horribly fails, spills it around the whole kitchen, and the woman will come with a magical product and save the day. Yay! This is what modern day authors are kind of doing with retellings or myths. Like in order to make a woman look more competent, make her feel more feminist, they kind of go around and make all the men around her look like cartoons or like drooling idiots. Like you don't need to do that. To make a character stronger, you don't need to pull the others down. This is again what happens with Kaikeyi to make her kind of the smartest, kindest person in the room. They changed this character of Ram, who was this just, complex, philanthropic king, to a misogynistic bully. To me, this is very lazy writing. Like it just feels like a woman can only shine when the men around her are dimmed. A true girl boss doesn't need everyone around her to be incompetent. Take for example Cersei, right? Like she deals a lot with these really, really horrible men, but they are all competent. If your heroine only looks strong because her opponents are weak, you haven't written a strong female character. You've probably just written a marketing gimmick. And finally, we have the most fundamental problem, which is the pizza paradox. Imagine you walk into a restaurant and you order pepperoni pizza, but the chef decides to retell it. So what they do, instead of the dough, they kind of swap it with a cauliflower crust. Instead of the tomato sauce, they replace it with a kale pesto, and the pepperoni, they just make it something out of tofu. And they hand it over to you as pepperoni pizza. Is it healthy? Maybe. Does it taste good? Possibly. But is it a pepperoni pizza? No way. It's just a salad on a cracker. This is a philosophical problem of the ship of Theseus. If you replace every plank of the ship with something else, is it still the same ship? Similarly, in literature, if you change the plot, if you change the moral core, if you change the key character's personality, is it still a retelling, or is it just like a made-up story, or maybe just like a fan fiction wearing a mask? Similarly, in Kaikeyi, you can see them doing this with the main plot of the story. So if you are used to Ramayana or not. The main plot of Ramayana revolves around the fact that Ravana kidnaps Sita, probably out of lust or out of ego, and this because of this kidnapping, there's this whole war, this whole story which goes on to rescue Sita from there. And but what do they do in Kaikeyi? They just completely flip it. Like, Ravan does not kidnap Sita because of this, but apparently he's her father and Ram is abusing Sita, so he needs to save her. So when you completely change the moral core of the story, how do you feel about the whole plot of Ramayana? To me, now this ship has sunk, the war to rescue Sita or whatever. This makes no sense at all now. You cannot retell a story by removing the main engine that makes it run. Now compare this to something like the Song of Achilles. Madeline Miller didn't try to fix the Trojan War. She didn't save Patroclus. The pizza is still the same. The flavors are still the same. The tragedy, the characters, the war, it's all there. What she did was instead change the flavor to something of a love story. And that angle makes it so beautiful and so great. Or even take the example of Palace of Illusions. It is Mahabharata told from Draupadi's perspective. But all the events are still the same. The war, the carnage, the characters, they're still the same. It's just a different point of view which kind of, deepens your thinking into, what was this character thinking or what was going on in her mind at this point of the story. So these authors kind of understood the assignment. They didn't change the whole ship. They didn't burn it down. Instead, probably they saw it from a different port. So those were the 4 cardinal sins of a retelling. So what have we learned today? We have learned that a retelling isn't good when you just flip a villain to a hero and a hero to a villain. We have learned that Achilles shouldn't sound like he's in therapy. And we have learned that if you replace all the ingredients of pizza with lettuce, you should probably just call it a salad. Look, I love retellings. I want more retellings. I want to see the past told in new ways through new lens. But don't change the past. The past doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be felt. Let me know in the comments below on your thoughts on retellings, and also drop your favorite retellings below so I can go and check it out. Till then, have a great day. See you next time. Bye bye. Good night. Shubh Ratri.